Hello, you are listening to the Divorce University online podcast with your hosts, Thomas and Tammy Ferreira.
Hi, I'm Tammy.
And I'm Thomas.
And today we're talking about
Lighting a fire.
lighting a fire, my fire, your fire.
Lighting a
Whose
fire.
fire are we lighting?
You have to light a fire in somebody's belly.
I thought you were going to say under.
We're talking about motivation.
I thought you were going to say under somebody's butt.
Yeah, well,
That too, huh?
somebody's monkey's butt. I get it. Okay. And this kind of came from when I was having a talk with my son. And
Who shall remain nameless.
yes, right. Who, if you're listening, shut up. We're trying to run a podcast here. Okay. And he's 18 and he's going to be graduating from high school in a few days.
Yep.
And we were talking about his future. And I was trying to encourage him to get one.
And this is, you would think that we would be proficient at this point, because this is our third boy, no less. So we should have this like down after going through it with my kids, but each kid's so different. you
Yeah.
know?
And I've always found that this particular kid is hard to motivate.
Mhm.
And so
Harder than the other three. yeah.
how do you motivate? And that's what the podcast is about.
Right.
Because I said to him, I basically, he's a surfer, and the number 6 surfer in the world on the World Surf League is a guy named Kanoa Igarashi.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy, I watched a little clip of him, a little vignette of him being interviewed about how he approaches competing. And he talked about his exercise regimen. He talked about how often he surfs. He talked about how what he eats and how careful he is and everything he does. And I thought, what on earth? And then he said it at the end of the vignette. He said, everything I do is to win a championship.
Right.
That's my goal.
Right.
That's what I think about. When I fall asleep at night, I'm thinking about winning a championship. When I wake up in the morning, I'm thinking about winning a championship.
Right.
When I'm daydreaming at the beach, I think about winning a championship.
Okay.
Everything. And this guy is just so rock hard focused. And what is it that drives that? And why is that important to our peeps?
Yeah.
Well, it's important to our peeps because we're trying to do things in the setting of getting a divorce that are extremely difficult and many times run counter to our nature.
Well, yeah, your nature in regards to change or in regards to difficult things or difficult conversations, our nature is to bury our head in the sand, right? That's the easier option for most people.
Right.
And on the coaching side, especially, I find that's a lot of times what I'm trying to do. It's like you're working a lot of times with somebody who's already made that decision, who already knows that ultimately divorce is what's going to, what they're going to have to do. But getting started in that direction just seems like this huge mountain.
Right. And it's not the kind of work that you go, oh, gee, I'm really excited about getting up and organizing my finances.
Right. I mean, at least if you're winning a surf championship, you're waking up thinking, I'm going to win a surf championship, right?
Right.
This is not like that.
Maybe we should call this episode, What is Your Surf Championship?
Yeah.
Because the way out of this conundrum is to find what it is that drives you that's like that surfing championship.
Right. And, we talked about this a little bit too. It's not, and I think people going through divorce make this mistake too. It's like one of the things that, Thomas's son is struggling with right now is like, what do I want to do? I have to figure out what I want to do, what I want to be, what do I like? What do I not like? And I think that whole, a lot of times we're conditioned by, find something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Or, I know when my ex-husband and I divorced, he had kind of gone through this midlife crisis, and suddenly hated his job and everything else. And so I think he's really post-divorce tried to drill into my kids' heads, oh, find something you love.
Right.
But
which is great if you can do it.
Which is great if you can do it. And some people do, but for the vast majority of us, and you and I were talking about this, I don't think it's necessarily something you love. It's not that you have to love the job itself. I don't get up every single day and say, yippee, let's work with negative divorcing people. Like, not everybody's negative, but most people are in a negative state of mind,
right.
which is what we're trying to pull them out of. And I love my people. I don't mean anything offensive by that. But what motivates me is my family. That's probably the biggest, you and the kids and the grandkids. That's the biggest motivating factor for me. Freedom, flexibility, different things that I wouldn't have necessarily at any point in life gone, oh yeah, I want to work in divorce.
Yeah.
But the work I do,
it gets you where you want to go.
It allows me to prioritize the other things in my life.
Right. And the same thing's true of Canella.
Right.
He probably feels like sleeping in sometimes.
Right.
All y'all get to sleep in, all you recreational surfers. I have to get up at the crack of dawn.
Right.
And sometimes the waves are crappy, but I have to go anyway.
Right. It's cold. It's dark.
I have to put in my 2 hours of weight training.
Right.
I am sick, sore, and tired of acai bowls and supplements.
Yeah.
There are things about, people think, well, Tom Brady won more Super Bowls than anybody in history. But what you don't see, what they don't show on TV is how hard he worked and how much sacrifice it took. Now, when we talk about sacrifice, we're talking about something that you don't want to do. So that's really what the episode's about. How do you get yourself to do what you don't want to do?
I remember, for anybody that's not a surf fan, that's perhaps, let's say, a basketball fan.
Yeah.
Which would be my half of this family. But I can remember listening to or watching an interview with
Michael Jordan.
No, please don't do that. You hate when I do that to you. I had his name too.
Dirk Nowitzki.
No, although Dirk is my favorite. If Dirk's listening, shout out to Dirk. He's my favorite. Okay, so
Kobe Bryant.
No, stop doing that. The Phoenix Suns guard Steve Nash. Okay,
Steve Nash.
I remember watching an interview with him one time, and one of the things they talk about with him obviously is longevity. He played a really long time in the league for, comparatively to most basketball players. And he's small. But one of the things, well, he's not really small. He's small compared
6
to
feet tall,
to the 7 foot
compared
people.
to Shaq, he's a midget. Yeah.
But he talked about how his diet in particular and how clean he eats and how, he doesn't even have, like they said, do you ever eat pizza? And he's like, maybe once a year on my birthday, I'll have a slice of pizza. And it's like a slice of pizza once a year on your on your birthday.
You picture Steve Nash. It's like he's holding that pizza going, this is my annual pizza.
I'm just thinking about us.
So
like, we have pizza a couple times a month,
I have pizza every night.
Well, you don't have pizza every night. We had burgers last night. But anyway, I'm just saying, it's like, he that's one of the sacrifices that he made in order to be able to maintain his physical health and, extend his career.
I had fried chicken waffles yesterday.
You did.
That's not on Steve Nash's menu.
I don't think so.
It was good.
It was really good. If you're in California, look up Huckleberries. They're throughout the state, and we tried it for the first time yesterday. It was really, really good.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what the point is that doing, difficult things is, you have to find that motivation inside of you. It doesn't come from externally. And I think that is also a mistake we see a lot of divorcing people make. I'll use my ex-husband as an example. Is I think he thought if, he was just kind of in this rut, and he thought if he changed all these external things, it would fix it.
Yeah.
But really, he needed to figure out how to, find his happiness and motivation and everything from the internal perspective.
Right. And I think it's the goal. It's
Right.
what you're trying to build.
Right.
Like, for example, we teach in many episodes that you need to be nice to your ex. Be so nice that it makes you feel a little sick to your stomach. Now, the sick to your stomach part comes from the fact that you'd rather tell him to shove it up
Yeah,
his nose.
shove it where the sun don't shine, as I like to say.
Right. Or her.
Her.
If you're the
Yes.
If we represent the guy, I have the guys, she has the gals.
Right.
But sometimes you don't want to be nice to her. You want to send something nasty or something.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you get to that point where you're not doing that, where you suppress your natural inclination? Because that's really what we have to do over and over again in this process, is suppress our natural inclination.
Well, and to me, a lot of times when I'm working with people on this kind of thing, is what it comes down to is your short-term versus long-term trade-offs.
Yes.
So in the immediate, it gives you a little bit of gratification to tell that other person to, take a flying leap, right? But the problem is that if you do that, you create grief for yourself over the long haul in the form of your parenting plan.
Right. It's like that guy who marches into his boss's office and says, "I quit. You're incompetent. You're a fool. You're an idiot." Like George Costanza.
Yeah, for all you Seinfeld fans. But then, 2 days later, he's back groveling for his job, right?
He's got the paper out and he's going, "Well, I could do data processing."
Yeah, but and I think that the thing with your son too is the same thing. It's the short-term versus the long-term trade-offs, because what he's looking at is, well, do I like science? Do I like math? Do I like philosophy? Do I like, what do I think I like that I want to work in?
Yeah.
And what you and I are looking at it from, because we've obviously tried to have some helpful discussions around this. And what you and I are looking at it from is the long-term perspective. It's like, okay, if you love your job, but that job requires you to travel 200 days a year, and you adore being with your family, and that's the most important value in your life, how do those two things fit together?
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem at 18, is that you only have this view of like what you're thinking about, what you want, what you like, and all that, but you're not seeing that the vast majority of your life is going to probably be married with children and all that kind of thing. And so your priorities shift.
He says he's not getting married.
I know. And my son said the same thing. My one that
I
now
said
has
the same thing.
3 daughters. It's the one that said he wasn't getting married. But I think he went through that too. For a long time, he was searching for this perfect career. And then eventually it was kind of like, you know what? I want the career that obviously provides for my family, but also allows me to be present with my family. And so I think that that's something that you have to look at in divorce, because we're so up to our eyeballs in decisions. Do I sell the house? Do we buy each other out? What's the parenting schedule going to be, and all this kind of stuff. And you're very, very focused on the short term, on what's happening right now.
Right. How do I get the podcast to work?
How do I get the stupid camera to record? I was having a lot of technical issues going into this episode. I was so frustrated. Thomas was like, "Are you going to be able to shift into
short term?" It was not good.
It was not good, but I
felt like giving up.
Yes,
frankly.
But we pulled it out.
Felt like going to Huckleberry.
I had to call for some technical backup from my son, but we got it. But I think that that's one of the big mistakes in divorce, is we see people do a short-sighted thing,
right? Yes,
and it cuts off their long-term options.
Right.
Exactly. We had a case several years ago where the woman kind of just, felt guilty about a lot of different things, and she just kind of threw her hands up and said, "I don't want any of the property. I don't want anything. I just want out."
Right.
And they had a small child, and she let dad have custody essentially. And then we kept saying through the whole thing, don't do this. You're going to regret this. We sent her to get attorney review.
Right.
We did everything we could to
I remember her.
cover ourselves because it was like, she is going to regret this. Like, we tried to get through to her. And about 3 or 4 years later, I got a phone call that said, Tammy, what do I do? I shouldn't have done this. And
Right.
and I think that's, in the emotional part, in the emotional aspect of the divorce process, it's easy to do things in the short term that cut your nose to spite your face kind of thing for the long term.
Right. Or we have certain clients that we have a hard time getting them to behave well in court.
Right.
Trying to find a nice way to say that.
Mm-hmm.
Not mouth off to the judge. And it's hard because you got this person who you don't know that's sitting there in a black robe, and they're giving you a lecture on how you should behave, like you're some kind of child.
Right.
And yeah, you want to fight back and defend yourself. And that's usually the wrong thing to do.
Or you have opposing counsel who's saying every horrible thing about you can possibly imagine, and it's the same inclination. You want to fight back and defend yourself and,
Right.
do all kinds of things.
And so in order to do this, we have to psych ourselves up. We have to be motivated by something that's bigger than all this.
True.
Yeah. When I used to teach in the community college, we referred to that as your big giant why.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's Kanoa's world championship.
Right.
He's got to have the world championship. He's got it pasted on his refrigerator.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of a good idea, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
To, the thing that you really want your life to look like, get some pictures that represent that.
Right.
Some people want to be rich, Tammy.
Present company included.
Somebody wants to be rich.
Well, I want the freedom that comes with that. My children live out of state. All my grandbabies are out of state. I want a certain amount of freedom and flexibility in my life at this point to be able to.
She wants to be able to afford her fancy water. Her fancy.
We're not going to talk about my fancy water.
Have we talked about the fancy water?
We have
before?
in previous episodes.
Tammy has to have water that's shipped over the ocean from Italy. And the ocean's made of water. And you're shipping the water in bottles from Italy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she wants to be rich. Tammy wants to be rich. She wants to drive nice cars.
I like nice things. I do.
Her idea of camping is staying in a 5-star hotel.
Yes. That is true. I am not a camper.
It's like, you got any 5-star hotels out there in the wilderness?
I mean, come on. I married an attorney for a reason, right? I'm not looking to go camping. But, all joking aside, I mean, I think that's what you have to figure out is what is important to you. And you don't need to, that's you. You don't need to make apologies for it or worry about what anybody else is going to think. The question is, what do you want? I want the freedom. I want the flexibility. Yes, I want to be wealthy. Thomas is correct about all those things. So what do I do?
She married the wrong guy.
I try to take what I do on a daily basis and focus it on those goals because that's the direction that I'm headed.
Right. And some of them are unpleasant.
Some of them are unpleasant. That's
like,
true.
The rich people tend to get up before 9:00 a.m.
That's
That's one thing.
I hate getting up before.
It's like you got to get up and have your quiet time. You have to do your reading, and there are various things that lead to that outcome if they are done. And this is the secret: consistently.
Consistently is the secret. It's true. There's who writes that book, The Compound Effect. I think it's by Darren Hardy. I think is his last name.
Darren Hardy.
I know it's Darren. I just don't remember if it's Hardy. But I don't know if we've talked about this before, but he writes this book called The Compound Effect, and essentially he was Darren Hardy. His dad was a football coach.
Yeah.
When he was young, and anyway, he talks about how we've heard these analogies before, like with an airplane. You know, an
Right.
airplane can be flying, and if you move the tip of the nose 1% in a different direction, you end up in a totally different place over
Yes.
the long haul. It doesn't make that big a difference in the short term. You know, if you're going from San Diego to Phoenix and you're off 1%, you know, I don't know, maybe you're in Tucson or somewhere. You're probably not that
Yeah.
far off your goal. But if you're flying halfway around the world to China, you're going to be very far off if you're 1% off that
Right.
whole way. And so that's what he talks about in the compound. That's a very, very obviously simple and short synopsis, but that's what he talks about in the compound effect of how your daily habits consistently over and over and over and over are what create the outcome for your life, because the effect
Right.
of whatever you're doing on a daily basis is compounded over and over and over and creates your outcome. So if
Right.
you don't like the outcome that you have currently, that's because the things you were doing on a daily basis weren't
Right.
the right things.
Right. And like our kids, our older kids, wanted to be NBA players.
Right.
Okay. But they didn't want it bad enough to consistently do the things that would have gotten them there.
Or eat one slice of pizza per year.
Yeah, that was just it. You know, I'm not a
Yeah.
pro surfer or an
Or an
NBA
NBA
player. You know, and you know, for me, that's not my big giant why.
Right.
And it wasn't for them. They thought it was,
Right.
because what they see, you see it on TV. You see these guys, these great big tall guys, and they're playing basketball, and they're amazing. You know, Steph Curry shoots from 3 feet beyond the 3-point line, effortless swish, and he does it over and over again. But what you don't see in Steph's game is the getting up and going to the gym and working on that 3-point shot and getting the trajectory just right and lifting weights and doing exercises
And the
going to
travel.
practice.
And the travel. How often is he gone from his family? You know, a lot.
Yeah, but in his goal, it's like he's like Kanoa. You know, he eats, breathes, and sleeps championship.
Right.
Championship.
Right.
Frankly, it's not that important to me
Right.
to be a champion.
Right.
But I'll tell you what is important to me: to be a good father.
Right.
Being a good father is really, for me, the sine qua non. It's everything to me. I get up in the morning and I think,
And husband.
and a husband too. Yeah.
I'm just saying, I thought I'd throw that in.
Yeah, well, family more generally.
Right.
And yes, I have put a lot of effort into being a good husband, and it's hard to do because sometimes you got to keep your mouth shut.
But you know what? It's like when you go through the divorce and that crisis hits and you think, this is not where I wanted to be. How did I get here? And, you know, if you do the hard work, I mean, if you don't do the hard work, you're going to repeat it. So I hope you do the hard work, but it's not easy. But when you do that hard work and you look at yourself and you look at your part in it and all that, that helps you to prevent that the next time around, right? A lot of people say, I'm never getting married again, but most people do.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, that sort of helps you figure out
Right.
that I'm not going to do these things again because they led to an outcome that I didn't want, which was the end of my marriage.
Right, and you're listening to the Divorce University Online podcast, and we're going to tell you what the secret of happiness is. The secret of happiness is finding that thing that drives you like a championship drives Kanoa,
Mm-hmm.
and then everything falls into place. And for most of us, I would say for most of us, it's some form of family.
Your children.
I know a lot of my guys are driven by a desire to be a good provider.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a theme that you see over and over again that's kind of hardwired into us as men.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're worried about money. You know, we worry about finances because we want to be good providers. You know, what are the elements that go into that? I mean, I started on that path when I was when I was in high school, and then I took the SAT, and then I went to college, and all those years where I lived on like $400 a month, and basically drove a car that didn't run half the time.
That you had to use your Flintstone feet to get it down the road.
Yeah, and what's at the end of that road is a career that's not just a career I enjoy, but it's a career that will allow me to provide for my family.
Yeah.
And for me, that's my championship.
Yeah. Although I would say that, at many different points you have disliked this career. I mean, I don't think this career has been something that you were like, oh, I just love what I do. We know some attorneys that are like that, but I don't think you have.
Well, it's not boring.
No, it's not boring. And I think that is one of the things. But that's exactly my point, is like, you don't have to love what you do, but
right.
You love certain aspects of it. You
Yeah.
love that it's a challenge.
Right.
You love that it's continual learning.
Yeah.
You love that it allows you to spend a lot of times with your kids and build your schedule around them. You love that we get to work in it together, and that strengthens our relationship. Like, there's a lot of pieces of it
Right.
that accomplish your goal, even though that isn't the exact thing that if you were choosing off of a list, you probably wouldn't have chosen this.
Right. And doing the podcast is another. I mean, this is how we market. This is how we teach. This podcast is useful because I can direct clients to various episodes and tell them, oh, this is the wisdom on this, that, or the other thing.
Yeah, it's like a library of resources.
But what you didn't see off camera is we couldn't get the equipment to work, and Tammy literally spent 2 hours trying to get it to work.
I did. I spent 2 hours before the podcast,
and we called her son.
Yeah, we normally record when they're here, but it just didn't work out that way this time.
So this is, what you're seeing here now is the culmination of a lot of effort, and some sacrifice. But
yeah.
We put it out there because, number one, I think Tammy, her championship, or part of her championship, is that she loves helping others, and she has a servant spirit and a servant's heart. And she wants to, when I hear her on her coaching calls, she's always trying to help her people and trying to help the ladies to do this right so that they can have the family that they want.
Right. Or the career, or the whatever that life is for you, figuring that out. And I had a couple of jobs. It's funny because I worked primarily in healthcare before I started working with Thomas, and I worked in cardiac surgery, which is a very life or death environment, and a lot like the thing that it had that was similar to this is every day was different. It was very challenging. I worked at the Mayo Clinic in Scottsdale, Arizona for several years, and just worked with a fantastic doctor there that was just continually teaching me and challenging me and enabling me to do my job better and better, which I loved. But it's like I had always been a numbers person, and I really wanted to work in some sort of administrative management or corporate finance capacity. And I got my MBA, and I worked at after we got married. I actually finished my bachelor's degree after we got married, and then got the MBA and went to work at Qualcomm as a financial analyst. And I loved the environment there in a lot of ways. Just worked with some really great people and learned so much, and constantly in numbers all day every day, which I enjoy. But the thing that I found working there that was missing for me is there wasn't any of that sort of intrinsic sense of helping somebody.
Yeah.
You're doing corporate things. You're crunching numbers. You're looking at sales. You're doing,
You're a cog in a machine.
Right. And it's not that, I worked in the unit that did like tracking and communication for like big rigs. So, big rigs are hauling things, which helps us get our stuff. And
I thought you were really interested in Big Rig.
But you know what I mean? It's not that doesn't serve a purpose in the economy, as we have figured out the last couple of years. It definitely does serve a huge purpose that we're all dependent on. But I wasn't close enough into the process to feel any sense of having gone home feeling like I have helped someone today.
Right.
And that's a huge piece for me.
Right.
And a lot of this comes down to, know thyself, right?
Yeah.
And know what's important to you.
Yeah, and we've been through that in other episodes where we talk about how to visualize and how to find out what for you is that big giant why. For some of you, it's going to be getting the big rigs to go where they want to go,
and God bless you if it is, because
yeah.
It's not me.
Yeah, and I find watching Kanoa surf to be immensely entertaining, but I can't do what he does.
Right.
That's not my big giant why. But whatever it is, you've got to find it, because what happens in divorce is we get sidetracked about worrying about what they're doing.
Right.
What is your ex doing?
Right.
How can I control them? How can I get them to stop trying to manipulate
What's their
me?
motive? Why are they doing this?
Right. And all that thinking is going to get you off your game.
Exactly.
And you need to be on your game. This is life. This is the big leagues for you.
Right.
And that goal is vital to your happiness. It's vital to your kids' happiness.
Right.
It's vital to passing on a legacy to the next generation.
Right.
And to me, that's what gets my juices flowing.
Yeah.
I sat up there and I gave my son a pep talk. And I love giving him a pep talk because I feel like I'm contributing to his drive and to him doing what he needs to do to find his happiness.
Right.
And that's the thing. So put it up on put a picture of it somewhere. Keep reminding yourself. When you go to sleep at night, meditate on it. When you get up in the morning, that should be the first thing you think about. And it will order all the rest of your activity throughout the day.
Yeah, and if you're like, a lot of times I'm working with moms who are, entering back into the workforce and again, like they get this very large, like, oh, well, here's what I'm educated in, or here's what here's what I did before, or this is what my degree's in, whatever. And it's like, okay, that's what you did before, but that was 15 years ago and no kids. Now you've got kids and you've got, you're older. You probably have different needs. It's not as simple as, when we're young, just having a job that actually pays us money. It's like, woo, that's fantastic. But I think as you start to get older, it's like just the money alone isn't enough to keep you motivated.
Right.
You've got to feel like you're contributing or helping or doing something. And so don't get stuck in this mode of, oh, I have to do A because I have a degree in that. I have to do B because I used to work in this.
Yeah.
What worked for you then might not work for you now. You're in a different state at this point. And going through divorce is sort of like a clean slate.
Yep.
It's like you have this fresh block to work from to figure out
So
what kind of life you want to create.
What do I want to do with the rest of my life?
There you go.
All right.
It's like
Today is the first day
of the rest of your life.
rest of your life. Start it right with Total.
Now we're advertising cereal, are we?
Right.
I don't even think I've ever eaten Total. Have you?
Yeah, I think I have. Isn't it like flakes or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we'll have to try that before the next episode so we can give an update.
Yeah.
All right, so we hope this has been helpful to you. If you are watching us on YouTube, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel so you get notified as new videos come out. If you're listening to the podcast, same thing for you. Please rate and review us and subscribe so that you get notified as new episodes are released. And thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Divorce University online podcast with your hosts, Thomas and Tammy Ferreira. For more information, visit www.divorceuniversityonline.com.